and his family, who have been one great family with mine. I appreciate the true friendship of Victor Chugum and family, dating back to 1983. I acknowledge Professor Chide Akujo for believing in me and being a huge source of encouragement. Chief and Professor Mrs. Chinwe Obaji have been great friends. Jude Anyanwu had remained friend and brother to me since we met in January 1973 to commence class 1 at Mbise Secondary School. Ngozi Oka has also remained a friend and brother from Mbise Secondary School through Federal School of Arts and Science and also at Cranfield. Jalen Banaja has remained a friend from Mbise Secondary School days. I acknowledge Imo Koli, my classmate, who had traveled away from Port Harcourt to be here. I acknowledge my senior. I appreciate Professor Mike Chendo for believing in me and for his interest in my progress. I acknowledge my senior colleagues, Uncle D, who has been like father to me, Professor Charles Oswagu, who has continually shown me enormous love, Professor Sam Onyegebu, who has remained so supportive from the first day I met him in July 1983, Professor Oke Odukwe, who was director when I was employed at Energy Center, Professor Silva Ekwelie, and I would add Professor Oleku Dala. They so much believe in me. Professor Alex Animalo had remained inspiring and professionally supportive. Professor Titi Kuku has been a steadfast associate. Professor A.S. Sambo and Barton Naji have been professionally supportive. His Excellency Chief Dr. Ojus Okalo has been a loyal friend and so very much believes in me. Dr. Pascal Desir accords me a kind of respect that I doubt I earn. Similarly, Dr. Emeka Enejere, may his soul rest in peace, was a friend that accorded me similar respect, deserving only of a contemporary. I value my former students, Dr. Steve Wanya, Dr. Chibo Mbemena, Dr. Howard Njoko, Dr. Mrs. Chinwe Samamobi, Dr. Matthew Ekoja, Dr. Chukwu Molwa, Mr. Andrew Esjanikewe, and a host of others for their continued support. I acknowledge some of my colleagues. Professor Rose Osuji has, beyond being a very supportive colleague, has been part of my family. I also appreciate continued support of Professor Sam Enibe and the entire mechanical engineering family. I appreciate the true friendship of Professor Pauline Usubuoke and all my former colleagues at the Energy Center. I especially acknowledge the friendship of Engineer T.C. Madu, my former colleague at the Energy Center, and Dr. Raf Awachie, who taught me deep night work habit. I thank my very good friend, Professor Mike Madukwe, for cajoling me and literally forcing me to give this inaugural. I acknowledge my colleagues that I met frequently during our ICT Trieste heady days. Professor Polichibu, dating way back from home. Professor Charles Igwe, I call him Igwe with a cap, but he has an enormous cap now. Maika Osilike and Frenny Kocho, Augustine Obachukwu, Augustine Chukwude, Charles Chidume, and Joe Mbago, may his soul rest in peace. I acknowledge all my friends and colleagues at the National Universities Commission, and particularly Dr. Lamide Adesina and Kayode Odedina for their sustained friendship. I appreciate the friendship and support of Mr. John Bawika and family, Dr. Okezie Kere and family, Mr. Jeffat Ohebulem. I acknowledge the friendship and professional relationship of Professor Celestine Agowa, Ime Zugu, David Mba, and Nduke Kere. I acknowledge the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Education and Culture, the Alexander Van Humboldt Foundation, for the great opportunity of the Humboldt Fellowship at Universitat Karlsruhe and Fortune Centrum Karlsruhe. I acknowledge the International Center for Theoretical Physics 1989 and 2008, Junior Research Associate and Regular Research Associate. I acknowledge the Commission of European Communities for offering the scholarship for my PhD at the Cranfield Institute of Technology. So very many good friends and associates to remember. And to those who despise me and slander me, many of you I have never met or interacted with, I acknowledge you. For my world will not be balanced without your unkind thoughts.
I think we can now sit down. Still standing on the existing protocol, we've listened to the inaugural, the 157th inaugural lecturer. I think he has spoken very well. I'm sure he did not disappoint us, and I couldn't have expected less from Professor Val Ekechukwu. I've known him for a long time. You've heard that my other name is without cap, but I'm putting on a cap today. Val has spoken on a topic that is very, very apt in our development as a country and as a nation. He spoke on alternative energy that is cheap, clean, and in harmony with nature. And he spoke on renewable energy. Well, one thing about Val's lecture is that he didn't wait. He spoke on an issue, on a topic that is very, very important. Energy source that is very available, that is very clean, available, and sustainable. However, you know, by our nature, we will still be waiting for that transported and exported or imported technology. Val, you talked about legislation on renewable energy, but we will not wait until they legislate. We are academics, and we know how to break through. Val, you have to go further. You have to go further to begin to preach this gospel of renewable energy. We can't be sitting and waiting. Let us begin to implement. Let us get to the implementation stage rather than waiting until they tell us to implement. That is what university is all about. That is what scholarship is all about. By the time we start, if we start maybe in a very crude manner, people will start getting interested. Let us begin to pass through the age of power failure in the universities. Last night I was passing through Faculty of Engineering and it was dark. Whereas we have this in abundant solar energy, and it is available and it is sustainable. Because if you go out now, even after a heavy downpour, you will still have solar energy. I want to thank you for your lectures. I've seen that those night crawls interested, and perhaps in the laboratory as Carl Ruse, that it wasn't in vain. Please keep it up. The Senior Ceremonial Committee has requested that I should hand over this certificate to you. Certificate of presentation, So you add it to those long list of your academic qualification. And I also do know that Val is a very, very popular scientist. I don't want to say that he's a very popular professor, but a very popular scientist. You may have friends that you've mentioned. I know there are more than you mentioned in your acknowledgement. Most of them will be, waiting for you now to finish, and they'll be requesting for copies of all these. Please, this is for your friends and relatives. And the Senate Ceremonial Committee, I'm jealous, and I'm sure other former inaugural lecturers will be jealous. There is now an innovation, because the university is all about dynamism. We are now introducing another one, and that and that is somebody has said that we should go back and begin to, but we don't go back to yesterday. It's only tomorrow that we'll be going to. This is for you for presenting an inaugural lecture. And if you have noticed, I'm sure the chairman of the Senate Ceremonial Committee may want to speak more on this. We have a lot of professors waiting to present their inaugural lecture. I know that many of them are so scared about what follows after the inaugural lecture. I was also scared during my own time, but I summoned courage. The same person that cajoled Valentine Ekechukwu into presenting his own so cajoled me that I didn't trust myself any longer. So I braved it up. I said, even if it means drinking only pure water that day, that people will drink pure water. So I will plead on all our professors to come forward and present their inaugural lecture. You never know where it will be needed. You never know. It is part of our visibility, and it is part of what makes a university. The university administration is only interested in this presentation and some of these ones that involve us. Whichever way you want to do your own, if you want to take us to a Kenga hotel, that is your own palaver. If you fee your salary, provided you don't go to charge your students. Because I understand that some people go to charge their students, their postgraduate students and their final year supervisees to begin to contribute money. That is not accepted. It is unacceptable. I will therefore plead on our professors to come forward and present their inaugural lectures. I think I've spoken enough on the available resources that we have in abundance in this country. Let us also have more lectures from the Faculty of Engineering, because if we are going to make it as a country, I know the economists will always tell us about GDP and whatever it means, and the capital and the recurrent expenditure, whatever they all mean. We cannot go forward. We cannot fit into the fourth industrial development, industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, if the engineers in our midst fail to give their inaugural lectures. Let us have more of inaugural lectures from the Faculty of Engineering. I counted it from this handout now, and I saw that Val is either the fourth or the fifth inaugural lecturer from the Faculty of Engineering. And it is unacceptable that a big faculty that has made name, a big faculty that is still making name, is only producing either the fourth or the fifth inaugural lecture for this university. I'm putting it up as a challenge to our colleagues in the Faculty of Engineering to come forward and tell us what they've been doing. They will help this country fit into the fourth industrial revolution that is being canvassed internationally and within the United Nations. Thank you very much.
Just before I make the announcements, may I invite the Public Relations Officer to give the vote of thanks. Chief Omarko, please.
A big task, moving a vote of thanks after this very broad-based academic presentation. I'll try as much as possible to cover all grounds. Where do I start and where do I end? Of course, charity begins at home. We show deep appreciation to the Vice Chancellor of our Citadel of Learning, the University of Nigeria, Professor Charles Ekechukwu, Charles Igwe, who has made it possible through his approvals for this to continue. In the same vein, the principal officers of this university, the council members, and past inaugural lecturers who have lent credence to their own and our own. And we are really thrilled to have our Emeritus Vice Chancellor here with us, Professor Udala. You're welcome, sir, once again, as we appreciate Vice Chancellors in our midst. The Vice Chancellor of ESUT, the Enugu State University of Science and Technology, right here with us, Professor Luke Anike. You're welcome, sir. In the same vein, my responsibility is not to go through the hog of the list of dignitaries here, but we want to appreciate some of the early birds who were constant in this quadratic equation of presentation of inaugural lecturers, because they were seated right on time and on cue. Professor Animano, who have been acknowledged in the course of the presentation, Professor A.C. Anyanwu, retired, and Professor B.A. Okori Akuchinya. We also appreciate Mazi Okoro Ijoma Uguaru, who has been here with us, and of course, a former Pro-Chancellor and Chairman of Governing Council of the Federal University of Petroleum Resources, a forum, Engineer Professor D.C. Onyejekwe. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The families and all, and most importantly, we have special mothers here who come all the way from MPC. The MPC women who are here, you watch out, you see them sparkling in their white and yellow. We'll not go through the full hog throttle of recognizing everybody individually, but we'll not fail to recognize the friends and relations present here. We also have old boy and friend of the inaugural lecturer, whom he recognized especially, Engineer Emmanuel Okoli. We also have another friend of his who's come very far, Ngozi Oka, and classmate 1973. He had to mention this very specifically, and friend to the inaugural lecturer, Jude Uzoma Anyanwu. You're very much welcome. We have here a celebrity, and usually he hides like some of us do when we move out in the public. But like a goldfish, there is no hiding place for such persons. The professor's cousin, a movie actor, Oke Pakasi Onyebule, right here with us. We have had the interludes and projections, the music department, members of the Senior Ceremonials Committee, Information and Public Relations, and I want to recognize all lions and lionesses here present for your total support. Lions and lionesses, thank you for coming out in your numbers. And you would have observed great innovations at today's inaugural lecture, the 157th, simply because aptly there have been a change in the stewardship, chairmanship of the Senate Ceremonials Committee. And we have our own tier rubber chairman, Professor Bennett Wanguma, Chairman, Senate Ceremonials Committee. We appreciate you, sir, for all your innovations. And he said there's a lot more to come. And that means you come again and again and again, because the 158th inaugural lecture is just by the corner. Let me say a big thank you to you all for coming, and my vote of thanks is just Those who have not heard their names, please indicate by raise of your hand. So everybody is appreciated. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much. Thank you. Announcements, please. First of all, the next inaugural lecture, that is the 158th Inaugural Lecture of the University of Nigeria, will be presented by Professor Mrs. Chinwe Ezani, the University Librarian, who is the Professor of Library and Information Sciences. I can tell you she's ready, but she can't give that lecture today. And her topic is Rejigging Nigerian Academic Libraries for Increased Visibility, Greater Impact, and Enhanced Service Delivery. How do we connect the dots? Promises to be everything entertaining and educative. Today's inaugural lecturer has requested, against my wishes, don't mind me, has requested that his guests proceed right after the lecture to the senior staff club for water. That's what he said, for a drink of water. I know there are restrictions at the senior staff club, but on a day like this, we grant multiple entry visas to non-members to come in and have a feel of what you do in that revered place. So the senior staff club is the venue of a very mellowed down refreshment. Having said that, I thank you all for coming. Thank you for your patience. We had to speed through things because we were hoping to stream this live on Facebook and on YouTube so that the rest of Professor Ekechukwu's family can watch live from the United Kingdom. But that's what we intend to do for every other person. And so when we intend to start by 1, we're hoping that by 1:30 marks, the lecturer is already speaking, because those who want to watch online will not understand the delays. So thank you very much for bearing with us as we skipped quite a few of the routines we're so used to. And finally, may I invite the music band to prepare to give the second stanza of the national anthem, which will serve as the closing prayer for today's inaugural lecture.